Hey good folks, Ram here for CG Tuts, and welcome to chapter 6 of this tattoo gun tutorial. I've already went ahead and saved this file under a new title, so this is the tattoo gun tutorial part 6 in your project files. In this part, we'll start unwrapping the UV maps for this model. I'll do that for only some of the parts, as some parts are very similar to others, so unwrapping them one after the other is very tedious for the viewer. For instance, the yoke, the front spring, and the rear divider are very similar unwrapping wise. Same goes for the grip, the coils, the capacitor body, and the rear binding post, at least the backside, and obviously the contact screw and the tube. All of these unwrap very similarly, so I'll just focus on one of those. Some of the parts here need only to be unwrapped once, and then we can duplicate those, like the coils and these type of screws and these type of screws. We can unwrap one and then duplicate it to the other parts. So I would unwrap the frame, which is relatively the most complicated part here. Select the frame and go to Create UVs, Automatic Mapping, Options. I'm using free plans and I'll hit Project. Let's open up the UV Texture Editor. We'll go to Window, UV Texture Editor, and there's our UV Texture Editor, and as you can see, it does a very good job here. We got the sides and the middle parts separated. Now, when you start UV unwrapping, you need to think of the final result that you're after. If I would like, for instance, to have a painting that's wrapping the entire shape here, I would need to unwrap these parts as one piece. My aim is to paint on this front and bottom part, and a bit of a grungy look on the sides, and I would like to leave the corners brand new, so to speak, because my aim isn't to make this tattoo gun look old. My aim is to create sort of an artificial wear and tear look, a designed look if you will, something similar to the wear and tear design you often see on jeans. It still is a brand new jeans, but it has that wear and tear look. I hope that makes sense. For my intentions, the UV mapping I've got here is a great start because I've got the sides all separated, and we need to connect the middle strip, if you will. Before we start dealing with this UV mapping, we need to add a UV map reference. Some people would use black and white checkers. I personally rather use colored squares. Let me show you what I mean. Let's apply a new shader. Right click, assign favorite materials, and I'm going to use a Lambert. We'll click on this little icon next to the color attribute, and we'll add file node. We'll click on the folder and we'll add the UV map reference. Okay, let's see how that looks. So now we can really tell how our UV map is laid out. Let's bring back the UV map editor, and there's our map. Now it's a bit hard to work this way, so for the time being I'll hide the texture by clicking on this little icon here. Let's make some room here so we can see what we're looking at. This, I'm guessing, is the front part. Let's make sure that, yeah, this is the front part. Okay. Let's start connecting the strip, the part that goes all around this shape. Right click and select edge, and I'll select all these edges here. I'm really interested only in the bottom edges, but it doesn't really matter if I'll choose more inner edges. Shift right click, move and saw UVs, and it would jump straight into place. I'll need to repeat the process, so I'm marking the bottom edges and hitting G. Now we've got here extra edges which we don't have all along here, and these belong here. So we'll need to take care of that, but we'll do that later on. Let's keep on adding the edges here. Mark these and these, and shift click, move and sort UVs. I'll just keep on building the strip here until I get all the parts connected. Okay, so I finished most of the strip, and the rest of the parts we've got left behind is the inner parts over here and the inner parts of the screws. Now, before we take care of those, I would like to first take care of these parts. We got this one that belongs here, and we got this one that also belongs somewhere. Not really sure where, but we'll find out soon enough. We'll first need to separate this strip from the main part. And to do that, we'll need to switch to UVs, so right click and choose UV. And I'll select all the UVs in this row. Same goes for the bottom. Shift select the bottom. I'll click on the scissors icon here to split the UVs here. Now, what that does is it splits all the UVs here. So that will mean that these edges are not connected, but same goes for these. These two are not connected to each other. So what we need to do is reconnect the edges. Shift right click, move and sort UVs, and repeat the process throughout the shape. We can select all of those together and hit G, and again G. Okay, so now all the shapes are connected except for the strip which is disconnected. Let's see. We'll select UVs, select one of those UVs, right click, select shell. Okay, as you can see, only the strip is now selected, and I'll move it over here, and it might be reversed. Let's see. Yeah, it's reversed. Okay, so I'll flip it up, and now it's placed correctly. So we'll mark all of these edges. Same goes for the bottom ones. Shift right click, move and sort UVs, and we are good to go. And we've got some irregularities here, and this would look incorrect over at this point. Well, now it doesn't look incorrect because it's only purple, but once we'll get into texturing, it will look incorrect. So what we'll need to do is we'll select all the shells. So right click, select shell, and we'll shift right click, smooth UV tool, and we'll choose the unfold, left mouse button, click hold, and drag it to the right. And that takes care of that. Okay, now we've got another strip to take care of. Over here at this side, we'll need to repeat the same process. Select UVs, select all this row, split the UVs here. We'll select the edges and reconnect all the edges here. Same goes for the bottom. Okay, now let's select this shell here, select shell, and we need to find out where it belongs. Focus on it over here. Okay, so it belongs to the back part here, this part here. Okay, I think it's reversed as well, but let's just make sure of that. Yeah, it's reversed. So let's flip it and let's make sure. Yeah, okay, so we'll select all of these edges, shift right click, move and sort UVs, and again we'll select some of those UVs, right click, select shell, and we'll shift right click, smooth UV tool, unfold. Now, looking at the UV map here, this edge doesn't seem to belong, so I'll mark it and focus on it over here, and
we've got here some sort of a division which I haven't noticed before. So what we'll need to do is select these two edges, we'll delete those, and we'll need to add a division here and here. So let's do that real quick. Shift right click, split polygon tool. These things happen, folks. Forgetting this division created a bit of a mess here, and we need to handle that. So first we'll switch to UVs, and we'll need to separate everything here. Let's select these UVs and these UVs. We'll separate all this mess all together. We got this UV in the middle here, these UVs and these UVs, and we'll split all of those. Okay, now everything is split up. So let's select this edge and this edge, and we'll move and sort those. That created a mess of its own, but at least we are on our way. So let's try and work with what we've got here. Okay, so things are getting a little bit clearer here. Now, let's select these edges on the side here, and then move and sort UVs, and that took care of that. This one belongs here probably, and this one belongs here, which means that this part here doesn't really belong. So let's select the UVs here, this one and this one, split the UVs, reconnect these edges, this one and this one, move and sort UVs, and now this one belongs somewhere else, probably somewhere around here, move and sort UVs. We still have this mess to deal with. We'll smooth out those UVs a bit later, but first let's deal with this mess here. I first want to move the UVs to a more logical location so I can really understand what's going on here. So this one belongs here. Select the edges here. We'll shift right click, move and sort UVs. Same goes here. I'll hit G, G and G, and that takes care of that. I'll select one of those UVs, go to select shell, and then shift right click, smooth UV tool, and I'll unfold it. Now these loose parts are the inner parts of the screws, and these are the inner parts of this punch we made here. And I would like to paint all those inner parts blue or light blue. Since I don't plan on adding any tribal shapes on them, what I'm gonna do is collect them all together in one place. So it's these, and then I'll select them all and move them around here and scale those down. Okay, next on the strip we've got these two parts at the edge. I would like to have it symmetrical and not asymmetrical as it is at the moment. So I'll cut off this part. We'll select this edge and this edge, shift right click and cut UVs. We'll move over to the bottom, select these edges, shift right click, move and sort UVs, and that took care of that. I would like to fit the strip to the top right square here. In order to do that, I will need to scale it down. Now usually I would recommend on scaling all the parts together in order to keep the texture uniform, but as I said before, I am going to add texture mainly on this strip and on the sides here. And as for the edges, I won't have any texture. I would actually have full-on black color. So since that is the case, I feel free to scale down the strip without the sides. So that's it for the frame UVs, we'll move on to the next shape.
The rear spring is very similar to the frame, UV unwrapping wise that is, so I would skip that. Next I will do one of the cylindrical shapes. I think I would go for one of the coils, let's say the bottom one, and we'll apply to it the UV map reference shader, which at the moment is called Lambert 2, and I really should give it a proper name, so we'll call it UV ref. Let's go to create UVs, cylinder mapping. Now we do need the attribute editor here, so bring it back up. And first we need to rotate the projection on the x-axis to 90 degrees. Let's set projection height to cover everything here. I would like it to cover in a 360 sweep and not 180. So now let's open up the UV editor. First I'll just select all the UVs here and scale those on the y-axis until I get decent squares here. Actually, to make sure that we do this correctly, let's bring this coil outside so we can really appreciate what's going on here. Up to this point we are actually looking good. We need to deal with this end and this end. Let's go inside the coil and we'll select these faces, so that's the right end, and deselect these faces and then reselect this face. So we're only choosing the flat side and not the rounded sides. Go to create UVs and we'll choose planar mapping. Right now the planar mapping is rotated to 90 degrees on the x-axis. We switch that to 0. We'll copy the projection width and paste it to the projection height, so we get a perfect projection here. Now as you can see it's reversed. Let's fix that. We'll flip it in the U direction. Let's move the main faces here to the side, so I'll just choose a few vertices there and right click, select shell, and I'll just move them to the bottom or to the side. And we've got this part as well, so again select shell and we'll move this aside as well. This is the bottom part there. We'll deal with that in a second. As you can tell, these squares are a lot smaller than the others, so we want to make sure that they are all the same size. So we would need to scale those down until we get a similar looking result. Okay, place it over here, and now let's see, we've got this part here, which is this strip. Let's scale that on the x-axis until we get the correct result. This end is looking fine. Let's do the same from the other side. Again, go inside the coil, select all of these faces, deselect these. We'll go to create UVs, planar mapping. We'll rotate this back to 0 and copy this width, paste it to the height. It's not flipped this time, but we do need to scale it down. So again, we'll just need to eyeball this until it looks correct. Okay, we'll place it on the other side. And last we've got this strip, and I'm guessing it's this strip here. So I'll choose one of those vertices, right click, select shell. We need to scale this one down, again only on the x-axis. And this is about it, I would say. Let's place it back in its right position. You know what, I would like to rotate it, since I can see the seam here, and I would need to rotate it on the z-axis to 180. And there you go, the seam is on the bottom and we can't really see it. And we are good to go. We'll set those as close to each other as possible since we want to save some UV real estate. We would need to scale those down because I want all the parts to be the same size UV wise. Now let's bring back the coil and now we can tell how things are looking here. I would like to set the sides on just one side of the main part. So let's see, let's select these and place them here. And we'll move this side so we'll have room for everything. Wonderful. I don't need to do the other coils since I can always duplicate this one and then place it instead of this one. Next I would like to deal with the wing nut fastener. So let's focus on that for a second. Now my aim here is to color the bevels here. This bevel, this circular bevel that continues throughout the wings on both sides and wraps around the body. I would like to color those light blue and the rest of the body black. In order to get the straightest UV unwrapping possible, we'll first center its pivot, so we'll go to modify center pivot and now we'll duplicate it, hide the original one, and we'll zero out the rotation for the duplicated one. And obviously it's not straightened yet. We would need to eyeball this, so we'll switch over to the side view and let's try and do our best here. It doesn't have to be perfect, close to perfect is good enough. Okay, now we'll unparent this one, we'll delete its history, go to edit, delete by type, history, and freeze its transformation, modify, freeze transformation, and we'll go to create UVs, automatic mapping. Okay, so we've got straight parts here, which works very good for us. First, I would like to separate this top part from the rest of the body in order to create one piece of the surrounding strip with both the bevels here. So I'll switch to side view and I'll select these faces. Okay, and now let's switch to top view. I'll select these faces. Now I know I'm selecting from the bottom as well, and I'll deal with that in a second. Okay, so I've got all the top parts selected. We've got stuff on the bottom which we don't need, so we'll deselect those. And obviously we've got the middle parts which we don't need. So we'll deselect those as well. And deselect these. So we are left with just the top part. Let's go to create UVs and choose planar mapping. We'll copy the width and paste it to the height to make it completely square. And I forgot to assign the material to it. So right click, assign existing materials, UV reference. We'll turn off the image here. That did a pretty good job for the top, but as you can see we get some stretching going on here. So let's see, let's select the UVs. We'll select one UV here, right click, select shell, and we'll shift right click, smooth UV tool. Left mouse click hold and drag on the unfold, and that fixes that, as you can see. And that's it. We'll hit Q to exit the tool. We'll move this UVs to the side for now, so it won't be in the way. Next we'll do the surrounding strip, and for that we'll need to start connecting these parts and connecting to them these missing pieces, which are parts of this bevel here. Let's see, we'll start off with this side here. We'll select the edges here, all these edges, and shift right click, move and saw UVs. Let's move these aside. I'll select one UV, select shell, move it aside. Let's move it here so we can work on it more easily. Okay, and we need to connect the edges here and these. Put this UV here, and I'll select all the UVs here. Right click, smooth UV tool, and unfold this shape. This way it's a bit easier for me to see what's going on. We'll switch to edge, and we'll select all of these edges, including this edge. Shift right click, move and sew UVs. Again, we'll select all the UVs here and smooth out the UVs. And we've got one last piece here. We'll select the edges, these edges, including these two. Shift right click, move and sew UVs. Well, that selected the mode that I bargained for. So let's deselect these two and this one as well, and then move and sew UVs. And now we've got only this piece selected. Select these two and move and sew. Select the UVs here. Select shell and smooth out the UV and unfold the UVs. Obviously we need to add this ring to this piece here. Now, if we'll just mark these UVs here and focus on them over here, we can see we leave 2 strips for the wing and 3 to the body. So that means I'll need to leave these 2 strips to the wing and the rest is going for the body. So let's see, let's select the edges here, right click and cut UVs, and we'll do the same here, G to repeat the last process, and we'll need to split it over here so we can stretch it out into a line or a strip. So again, hit G, and I would need to cut these edges here in order to cut this circle and spread it out as a strip. We'll select these edges and just split those. So shift right click, cut UVs. We'll select these UVs, right click, select shell, and we'll move these out of the way. And now let's see. I would like to separate these strips here. Great. Now let's connect these edges. Move and sew UVs. I think the best way to deal with this shape is to cut this circle in half. It will be easier to connect 2 halves or even 3 parts rather than connecting the circle and then trying to unfold it. We started with this part, so we'll cut it in this part. So that will mean these edges here. Cut UVs. I would like to also split up the other side as well, these 2 edges. And while we're at it, I would like to split up the opposite 2 sides. Shift right click, cut UVs. And let's switch over to UVs. We've got a few separated pieces here. And now it will be easier to unwrap these. Let's start with this part. We'll select the edges and we'll select everything here. Other than the inner parts, we don't need the inner parts. Shift right click, move and sew UVs. Okay, great. Now let's select the UVs here. Right click, select shell. Shift right click, smooth UV tool. Okay, and we need to unfold it. On and on and on. Got parts which are not connected here, so let's correct that. Move and sew UVs there. These 2 again, so we'll hit G. These 2. Okay, so we've got some parts which are not connected here. So let's hit Ctrl Z. Till we get back to the original shape. Let's do the other side as well, and then we'll have an easier time. We'll select all of these edges and deselect the inner parts. Move and show UVs. Great. Let's select these edges without the inner parts. Move and show UVs. And I think that's it. We've got parts here which belongs to wings, UV wise. So we'll select these edges here. And same goes for these parts here. Okay, right click, cut UVs. Select part of the UVs. Over here and over here. Right click, select shell. Move these two out of the way. All these four parts belong together. They are parts of the wings. Move those out of the way. At this point, it will be easier to split this shape in a few parts, unfolding it, and then reconnecting them. We'll select these UVs and these UVs. Split it over here as well. Okay, we'll split it. And now let's reconnect the edges here so we won't get any unwanted artifacts. These. Same goes for the other side. And over here as well. Okay, we'll just shift right click, move and show UVs. We'll select some of the UVs here. Select shell. We'll shift right click, smooth UV tool, and unfold it. And once we do unfold it as one piece, it's easier for us to make sense of it. And we've got a part here which needs to be connected, so we'll select these two and move and show UVs. Unfold it, put it aside. We'll select the next part. And again, unfold it. We can even scale it up to match the size of this one. And let's continue on. Select part of the UVs, select the shell, right click, smooth UV tool, unfold it. And we've got a few unconnected edges here. So we'll select the edges, move and show UVs, and now let's unfold it again. And again, we'll scale it up to match the rest of the parts. And the last part. Which also have some unconnected edges. And we'll move it over to this part here. Let's rotate it a bit and scale it up. And now let's connect these edges. We are now connecting all the different parts. And move and show UVs. Okay, now let's select the whole shell. And smooth UV tool, unfold it as one piece. Obviously it's way too large and it's twisted, but it's one piece. The squares are perfect. They are tilted, but they are perfect squares. And this is what we wanted. I'm very happy with this result. Scale it down. We'll place it aside here beside the top part for now. Let's select this part. This is the bottom. Set it aside. Next we've got the inner ring here and the wings. Now for the wings, we've got the wings sides, or should I say the wide part, this part here, and the strip that surrounds them. So what I think I would do is I'll have one side on its own and the other side connected to the surrounding strip. We'll start off with this piece here. We'll just move it aside, select shell, move it aside so we'll have some room to work in it. And this is its or part of its side, and this is the opposite side. Now the bevel here has 1, 2, 3, 4 parts, so we'll leave 2 parts for the side and 2 parts for the surrounding strip. Disconnect these, shift right click, cut UVs, and let's select the UVs here, select shell, and we'll move those. This probably belongs here, and let's see, let's select the edge. Yeah, it's this one. Okay, but it's flipped. Let's select these UVs and rotate it. Okay, and now let's select these edges and we'll connect these. Okay, we'll unfold those a bit later. This edge doesn't belong here, this strip, and same goes for the other side. We said we only want 2 parts, not 3, on each side, and it's also missing a few parts here. So let's see, first let's split those, shift right click, cut UVs, move this piece aside. Let's make some order here. First, these and these are the inner radius, the inner parts, this part here, so we'll move those out of the way. These 2 wings are not part of these 2, so we'll move those out of the way. These belongs to these, and I think this one as well. These all belong together, right? Okay, so we need to make sense of these. We'll first make sure that this part is complete, and let's see. So these 2 and probably this one is what's missing, so we'll select these edges and shift right click, cut UVs. We'll select these edges, move and saw UVs. Okay, so this shape is now complete. Let's unfold it. Wonderful. This is this part and it's all set and done. We've got nothing left to do with it. And these parts all belong together. Let's start connecting those. Let's select this part and rotate it, and we'll start placing it a bit more logically. So this actually belongs here. These belong here. The closer the shapes are to each other in a more logical way, the better unfold we would get out of it. Now these 2 parts are set in a more logical way. Let's move on to this part. Let's make sure which end is where, and let's see. Okay, so this belongs here. We need to take this piece and move it here, and again we need to rotate it a bit more to get it in the right place. And next we are missing a part here, so let's check it out. Where is it? It's one of these, and it's this one. Okay, let's select, actually we need to select the UVs. We'll select these and move them over here. We obviously need to rotate it, but just to be sure, yeah, we need to rotate it. Okay, select these UVs and we'll flip it. Okay, these belongs here, and we've got some of these parts which probably belongs here. Okay, now let's start connecting things here. We'll select these edges. Okay, so I've got everything inside selected, and I'm missing one part here, which is probably one of these strips. So I'll also select this edge and this edge, and I'm missing these parts here that I've got here, and these are probably one of these pieces. So I'll select these edges as well as these. I'll select move and show UVs. And now I can select the UVs, I'll select everything here. Right click, smooth UV tool, unfold it, on and on and on, until I get something smooth and logical. Now, as you can see, we've got some extra edges here. We got this square, which probably belongs here, and we got another square that is missing there. So that's probably apart from here. Let's fix that. Let's select the edges here. First, we'll need to connect these, move and show UVs, and disconnect this one. Shift right click, cut UVs. We'll select the edges here, and then move and show UVs. We'll need to unfold it. Now, let's see these two edges. This is probably the opposite side. So, we'll select this edge, shift right click, cut UVs, and we'll move over to the second shape. Select these edges, move and show UVs. Okay, so now this shape is complete. We can select all its UVs, smooth out UVs, unfold it. And here we've got, well, we don't have two extra edges. We've got a missing edge here. We'll select this edge, and this edge, move and show UVs, and that's the strip we had here. And again, we'll select the UVs, shift right click, smooth UV tool, and unfold it. This unfold serves my purposes perfectly since I want to color only the bevel parts. We can now scale these two to be the same size. Now, let's deal with these parts here. All of these belong together. We need to unfold them the very same way we did for this part. And since the unfold process here is the very same as we just did for this wing, I will pause the recording, run through the unfold process real quick, and we'll continue on from that point on. The second wing is also connected, and I'm left over with these two parts, which are these two faces here, and same goes for the other side. And I think I would connect those to the main strip. Let's move those over here so we can see what's going on here. And let's see, let's select the edges, and I'll connect these edges and these edges, move and show UVs. And again, same goes for this one, these and these, move and show UVs. Let's select the UVs here, select shell and unfold that. And that's it for the wing. Let's move these parts here. Now let's make sure all the parts are at the same size. Right now the two wings are approximately the same size. The strip is approximately the same size as well. Bottom side needs to be a bit larger, and the top side needs to be smaller. Now all the UV layout is approximately the same size. Of course, I haven't finished with the inner side, so let's select these and move them here, and let's see. These belong here, this one belongs here, and this one belongs here. So we'll select all the edges here, move and show UVs, and it's in one piece right now. We'll select the UVs, smooth out the UV tool, unfold it. So now it's in one piece, and I think it's actually in the right size. Oh, it might be a bit too large, maybe we need to scale it. Okay, this is the right size. We'll move it over here. I think I would do it this way. Let's rotate this something like this, and we'll select the bottom, place it around here, select the top, place it here. I'm trying to save as much room as I can here. Let's flip this to be vertical, and we'll place it here. Oh, you know what? We can even place it here. And we are left with these. We can rotate these to be a bit closer to each other. Let's select all of these and we'll place it around here. I'm trying to minimize the space that they're occupying, so I will have place for the rest of the parts, and we can compare those to these. We can scale those down. They don't need to catch so much room. And it seems I haven't finished this part, so first I want to select all of these and scale those down as well, so they would fit here. Most of it should fit here. Okay, and now let's see. Let's move the middle part and place it straight in the middle here. These two can be here. Now, this is a very small part, and I don't plan on putting any texture on it, other than painting it completely black and adding light blue on the bevels, so I can scale it down and place it here. And now let's see. So, as you can see, I've placed this one in the original place. I had to eyeball this, and we can now get rid of the old one and rename its name to wing nut fastener 01. Now, as for the other wing nut fastener, let's duplicate this one and ungroup it, so Shift P, and we'll place it beside the wing nut fastener 02, zero out its rotation, and let's place it in the right position. We'll rotate it on the Z axis to 90 degrees and rotate it on the Y axis, and we need to scale it up. Let's check it out from the top. It's rotated backwards, so minus 90 degrees. Let's move the original one aside so we can compare the two. This one has no inner radius. Let's hide the frame for a second so we can work in it more easily. So what we'll do is select the edge ring here, shift right click, extrude edge, and we need to extrude that on the world scale and extrude that on the x-axis, something like this, and scale it down on all axes. Let's switch to shaded view, and we'll extrude edge again on world scale and scale it down. We will select all of the vertices here, shift right click, merge vertices to center, and we've got a single vertex here which we need to be aligned with these on the x-axis. Okay, so the shape is practically similar, and now we've got to deal with these UVs. So again, let's bring up the UV editor, and all we need to do is select these faces and go to create UVs, planar mapping. I'll just play with the rotation until I get the correct spreading, and I think this is it. So minus 90 on the Y, and I'll copy the height projection and paste it to the width projection, so get a perfect square here. And let's check it out on the UVs. Oh, we've got something very interesting going on here. Okay, we need to flip this, since the red side is flip UVs. So let's select the edges, shift right click, cut UVs. Let's select the UVs here, select shell, and we'll flip it and rotate it. We'll also need to move it, and these edges won't connect since this edge belongs to this one, and so on and so on. We'll just need to scale those down and place them in the right position. These actually belong in the middle here. Scale those down, and we are good to go. We can actually delete this one and rename this one to 01 or 02, I think. This brings to a conclusion lesson number 6. In the next lesson, we'll unwrap the yoke, which is very similar to unwrapping the rear divider and the front spring. We'll also deal with the armature bar, which is actually a very simple shape to unwrap. And we will deal with one of those cords, which is probably the most complicated shape, well, right after the wing nut fastener. So without further ado, let's jump over to the next lesson.